Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 68 of Album of the Day. And first of all, hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. If any of you are, out of town right now or stuff like that, I just went home from going out of towns. Just wanted to say that. But anyway, aside from that, let's get on to the review. So today's artist is a band that I've been wanting to review an album by these guys for quite a while, like a few years. But, I was just I kept promising and teasing, and now I'm just now about to review an album of theirs. For a while I've been wanting to review an album by the Akron, Ohio garage rock group called the Black Keys. I'm here to review my favorite Black Keys album of all time, their third album, released in September of 2004 on blues label Fat Possum Records. The album is called Rubber Factory, and this is also the Needle Drop's all-time favorite Black Keys record, so if you're watching this is for you, Needle Drop. This is my CD copy that I've had for quite a few years. And for whatever reason, the track listing isn't on the back. That's kind of weird, but, it's kind of weird how they package albums sometimes. There's, some photos of the band, and then there's the CD. Basically a collage of stuff. And this album was actually recorded in a silo, in Ohio or something like that, but then it eventually got demolished in 2010, 6 years after the recording of this album. And there's some handwritten lyrics in here. And it was recorded at a silo recording studio called Sentient Sound from January to May in 2004 in Akron. Recorded by the drummer Patrick Carney, who produced all the early Black Keys records. And I also have a vinyl copy of the album that I've had for well over a year. I've been listening to it on CD for a couple of years and loved it, but this vinyl just takes the listening experience to a whole new level, so I highly recommend getting it on vinyl. And then there's the liner notes from the CD version. Here's side 1, side 2. And there is a download card in this. If I could get it out. Yep. This is basically something you can use if you want a portable way to listen to it, but I already have the CD, so I don't need to use it. And I never really used download cards. In fact, some of them I've even thrown away some download cards that I've gotten in some of the vinyls I've gotten, but trying to do that less now, but I used to do that. Yeah. Hold on a sec. The only downside is that the download card tends to get in the way when you're trying to put the vinyl sleeve back in there. Okay, now I got it. So that's my vinyl copy of Rubber Factory. So my three favorite Black Keys records definitely would have to be this one, Thick Freakness, and their opening, and their debut album that came out back in 2002 called The Big Come Up. The reason those are my favorite albums by them is because love how it's just so raw. The guitar riffs on there are Just just love those nasty r- real visceral and very skillful guitar playing from Dan Auerbach. And then there's that real there's some really there's some rough and beefy drums from Patrick Carney. The interesting thing is how back in the early days of the band, his drum kit wasn't set up like everyone else's, so it gave the Black Keys drum sound a much rougher sound. And then you had that distinctive voice of Dan Auerbach. So basically just the raw production, I think, is really what makes the Black Keys' older records, those three, along with the EP that they put out in 2006 called Chulahoma, which has a bunch of Junior Kimbrough covers on it. It's mostly just the raw production that makes those albums just stand out for a rock album. Now, Rubber Factory, there's definitely that same thing that made The Big Come Up and Thick Freakness such great albums. But there were also a few other things that are so big on this record that weren't that weren't really there on their first two records. There's a higher focus on songwriting. There's definitely more. There's definitely some more. Lyrically, the record reflects more on relationships and sentimentality and a lot of the Black Keys' earlier songs basically had to do with basically had kind of the same love relationship thing that a lot of blues songs had way back in the day. This album, on the other hand, goes for something a little more heartfelt and a little more in depth with songs with songs like The Lengths, or there's definitely more kind of a sense of storytelling on this album. There's the song Stack Shot Billy that talks about this mean guy who murdered someone, and obviously yeah. There's a sense of storytelling with with Stack Shot Billy, and plus the band also blends in a little bit of extra instrumentation even. This is something that not a lot of people talk about when they talk about this record. The fact the band actually used some extra instruments on this album. There's this weird fiddle that's used on When the Lights Go Out. Carney throws in some bongos and a timpani on All Hands Against His Own to have the distinctive percussion sounds in the bridge before that guitar solo. And then there's The Lengths, which has this real sad pedal steel guitar, this real sad lap steel guitar on it, provided by Auerbach, which kind of fits in with kind of the sentiment and kind of the sense of loneliness that song has. The first time the band has made a foray into balladry on some of their records. And there's also so there's a little bit of that blended in there, and then there's also kind of a country. There's also kind of even a country influence going on with this record. There's a cover of Act Nice and Gentle that has that kind of tone to it that the country influence wasn't really something that was obvious on their first two records. It's two records. I mean, just, all in all, the record is, definitely one of my favorite rock albums. The White Stripes Distill is definitely one of my favorite, garage rock albums, and this one is definitely right there with it. Of course, along with Thick Freakness and, all that. So, if you're new to the Black Keys, like, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of you probably know who the Black Keys are, because, initially they were pretty underground. They were still kind of indie back then, but in 2010 they really made a big boom with Tighten Up becoming a radio hit, and they won a Grammy in 2011 for their album Brothers. But if you don't know the band, this would probably be a good introduction to them. I would highly recommend starting with this or Thick Freakness, because those are their two best records, in my opinion. Which a lot of fans happen to agree with me on that, so, start with this. Start with this with Thick Freakness, and you'll fall in love with them instantly when you listen to them. Just wish, the later stuff by the Black Keys had that same raw edge that the first three records and that EP and that Junior Kimbrough EP had. Skip Turn Blue, their latest album, and check out this instead. So that's my review on Rubber Factory. I'll see you for episode 69.